Hi there, this is Matthew Sterner Neely. You can also call me Maddie, that's acceptable. I am doing this project for my class on gamification of instruction. And bigger than that, well, I guess not bigger than that, but um, I'm also going to be posting this on my YouTube channel. And those of you who know me as the Lego Prof. So come check this out. We're going to be taking a look at some different things about Breath of the Wild. And what I'll do is I'll be analyzing 4 different things from Breath of the Wild and talking about the learning theory behind those things, and and then how they kind of work in the game. And that's how I'll kind of do it. I got a few examples for each one, and I'll try and put up the. You should see the learning theory and kind of what's going on down here at the bottom of the screen. And so yeah, so let's get into it. The first thing we're going to talk about is learning theory characteristics that are used within the game. So let's take a look at that. Let's do an in-depth look here. You'll see that in this particular excuse me, there we go. Here we have Link, and he is making some recipes. So I'll just let that play in the background. So first I want to talk about operant conditioning. Now, operant conditioning, of course, is that conditioning that comes, or that learning theory that comes from B.F. Skinner. And the idea is that you associate one thing with another thing, right? So, dog, here's a bell, and food is presented. Eventually, the dog salivates at the sound of the bell, right? So, as we take a look at associating these things, the recipes are pretty intuitive, actually. The recipes themselves, if you throw some seafood, for example, what's going on right now, some seafood. Let's check this out. Hearty meat and seafood fry, right? So we get seafood out of seafood, which makes sense. If we throw a rock, or any sort of rock, precious metal, it becomes rock hard food, which makes sense. So we are associating particular types of foods that we already know about. We've got this thing that we already know about. Fish is good to eat, right? And let me take a look at this. Oh, yeah, I'm going back there. Okay. So we know the fish is good to eat. Mix that up. We can create a fish stew or something like that. In here, Link put in the some mushroom, or no, sorry, pumpkin and some cream and some salt, and what came out, and a vegetable, and what came out was a tough veggie cream soup. Now the vegetable that was put in there was a pumpkin, okay, and there was cream. So yeah, we know that we know that we're gonna have some sort of a soup, but also the pumpkin has a property that it will give you a low-level defense boost. So now we have something new. Now we know that when we encounter pumpkins, we can get a defense boost, right? So we learn that, and then we take that and we apply it to new situations too, which is where the second thing comes in, and that's cognitive curiosity. Cognitive curiosity talks about the curiosity that's present when you're doing things, that when you're having to learn things and think through things. And there's nothing more, well, among the different things that are available to do in this game, there is not much more that is interesting and that you could potentially be curious about for long periods of time than this food. One of the examples of that is that even when you're done figuring out all the recipes, and there's too many to even count. Actually, I don't even know if they end anywhere, Maybe there's some sort of algorithm. You can cook with dragon parts. When you cook with dragon parts, you get insane boosts. When you cook by the light of a blood moon, which is a kind of a reset feature in the game, you get a boost as well. But if you combine a dragon part, a particular dragon part, plus a cooking during a blood moon, you can get a 30-minute boost for something. So throw in a few pumpkins, you'll get the highest level boost plus 30 minutes with a dragon part, or with a 30 minutes highest level. Yeah. So, and then the last thing really is that I want to talk about just briefly is germaine cognitive load. Now, so I have this on my computer here so I can reference it, which is a great idea. Just gotta remember where I put it. Oh, here we go. So, John Sweller, that's who it was, article 1988 in Cognitive Science. He talked about intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation, and intrinsic motivation, extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic cognitive load, extrinsic cognitive load, and there we go. Intrinsic cognitive load, extrinsic cognitive load, and germaine cognitive load. Intrinsic is the complexity of new information. So when we've got 1,000 different parts, that's too much for us to understand. So the game limits that. The game simplifies it and only allows you to cook 5 ingredients at a time. Extraneous cognitive load distracts working memory. This kind of cognitive load distracts working memory from processing new information. And in a cooking situation, the distractions are taken out. You're taken to sort of a separate place, although there is time that passes, but it's a different kind of thing. You are in your menu, you are at a fire, and so you don't have to worry about monsters attacking you or something like that. Actually, you can't worry about monsters attacking you at the same time because you can't fight monsters when there's a lit pot around. You can't cook at the same time. So you want to try and reduce that stuff. So they do. And then germaine cognitive load is the deep processing of new information, integrating it with previous learning. So that's what happens when with the food and the recipes. So we've got this pumpkin, and maybe we didn't notice at first, but it's actually called I think it's called a tough pumpkin. There's another kind of mushroom called an iron shroom. There is a mighty, I think that's an attack boost. There is a plant called an armor ant. All these things have defensive boosts. For the attack boost, we find things like mighty thistles and mighty porgies and mighty bananas. So anything that has mighty in front of it, we know that that's going to give us an attack boost. And and there's little clues like that, but it's not anything that we would pick up at the beginning because we don't have the schema for it. But then once we start to integrate it into our schema, we see how important collecting food and so forth is. So I want to move on to the next part of this, the next analysis, which is of the the memories that happen in Breath of the Wild. So let's take a look at that. So this is one of the, this is actually the first, chronologically, the first memory. There are, I think, 18 memories that can be gathered from around Hyrule, and some of them require to go to a specific place and press the A button, and then you find out the memory. And it goes into this like kind of dream world and stuff. And in every one of the things that happens is that Link will have a realization, like, oh my gosh, I did this. And they're collected out of order all over the place. You can go to wherever you want and collect a memory, right? So also sometimes you need to do something like defeat a boss, a huge boss, in order to gather a memory or something. Sometimes there's various things like that. So when there's what's interesting about this is that I can't remember my theorist now. Gosh, that's so embarrassing. Let me go back to it's a very interesting one. I could pull from almost any of these, but the book, the textbook, talks about episodic memory, memory that's information stored in a person's long-term memory that receives and stores information about temporally dated episodes or events and temporal spatial relations among those events. In other words, episodic memory contains information about life's experiences, information associated with a particular time or place. A person is able to remember certain times and places because they have particular meaning. Here we have all those things, right? We've got associated with a particular time and a particular place, 100 years ago, in particular spots all over Hyrule. We've got Link has these realizations because Link is experiencing some a sense of meaning, right? So that's how the story's told here. It's told through these episodes. Let's see what's next. Oh, yeah, and so the thing I want to talk about real quick for this is distributed practice. And this isn't as much of the memories, but in general, and I think this can apply to just about anything, but in general, distributed practice, you've got your practice, and you've got your practice, not all at once, but the text says something about having at least a 24-hour period in between, right? So even within the game, there's so much to do that you're doing something, you're practicing something, you're acquiring or perfecting a skill, and then you can go away from that for game time or even real time, and then when you come back to it, you are better at it. And I've always wondered why that was, and that's because of this distributed practice. So let's see. I kind of want to try something here. We're going to go back to talking about recipes real quick. So let's do that. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is analysis of the game content. Now, there's no way I'm going to cover all the game content. One person on here, on YouTube rather, has a 3-hour, incredibly detailed review of it. Awesome stuff. I'll try and put in a link. What I want to talk about is just a couple of things that the textbook touches on. And one of those is problem solving. So problem solving can be embedded in social constructivism and a number of other things. Authentic learning, authentic instruction. But in this case, if we examine critical theory from Paulo Freire and Giroux and Paul Gorski and so forth, Gloria Latson Billings, we've got an interesting thing here with the recipes. These are solving problems. These are solving the problem of not being able to pass a certain section, except the game has everything built in for you to do that. So Freire says with problematizing content, he says no oppressor asks the oppressed to ask why. And in this game, that's essentially all we're doing. We're like, why is this happening? Why do we have to do this thing or that thing? And really, there's no choices, or very few choices, that you have to do in front of anything else. After the 3-hour tutorial, you're basically allowed to go to the castle and fight the big boss at the end. And I mean, it's possible, I suppose, to do it. And people have done this on YouTube and so forth. But we ask why all the time. Why are we doing this? And if we don't know, we can go to a different part of the map and figure that out. There's another another thing that I think we can talk about here, and that is the instructional design that is happening, or that has happened as a result of, the instructional design that happens within recipe making as an entity in the game, right? So I'm going to pause this real quick. Let's see. Let's talk inquiry for one example, because this video is getting very long. Let's talk inquiry. When generative questions are asked of students, when we ask them to do things, right? We can do this in a number of ways. Some direct instruction, then repetition, whatever, something like that. One of these is called an EG-RUL. And that's that all these examples are given to the student, and then the student comes up with a rule that fits for all those examples. In this case, that would be trying all of the different recipes and coming up with a rule. I can't put a monster part in with a piece of food, but I can put it in with a critter. Gosh, I've got these mighty bananas and mighty pumpkins and mighty thistles and so forth. And I'm going to cook them. Oh, holy cow. Inductively, we have realized that anything with mighty does that. So not only is the overall learning happening, but the learning is happening at like the bullet point level in terms of like instruction, right? Specific questions or specific discrete tasks that we ask students to learn. Okay, so this is our final part. We have, whoops, there we go. Switch this around. Okay. So the final one is analysis of the domains of learning and associated instructional and gamification techniques. So I want to talk about 3 things. I'll try and keep it brief this time. There's matching, and that comes from the cap text. And general, what you're seeing here is that you have 2 sculptures, and one is correct and one is slightly off, and you have to find the single piece of magnetized block that fits into one of those 2 puzzles, right? But it's not always straightforward. This particular one, I chose it because it's not straightforward at all. Very, very difficult. But the gist of it is exactly the same from Chloroxide to Chloroxide, or from that particular puzzle to another puzzle similar to it. So another thing that the domains of learning aspect, we've got a disjointed story, right? The story, the narrative is there. It's all there, and people have actually twisted, or not twisted it, but rearranged it so that it could fit into, a 10-minute YouTube video or something. And but that's how the story is told, through these memories, and you basically dictate when you're going to tell what part of the story to yourself. And then finally, we have master mode. And this deals with the replayability, because even if you've beaten the game, you can go back into the downloadable content, the DLCs, and you can access, among other things, master mode. And master mode is fantastic because master mode levels up every single monster to the next level. So there is no base level. Usually, like with bokoblins that you see here, those ones on top of the hill are just red, and that's the lowest level. But here they're blue. And furthermore, monsters can regenerate their health. I think I am going to show let's take a look at this real quick. So when we take a look at bokoblins, we can, I wonder what that one is. Okay, so that's the red one. You can see some red ones there. What else do we have? Let's see. Well, that's not very good, is it? Okay. So there's a red one, and we've got blue ones down here in the lower left corner. We've got black ones above that. We've got the white one above that, and then the top level for the master mode is the gold one, which has an ungodly amount of hit points and so forth. So that is that. Here we talked about the characteristics of the thing that we're analyzing. We talked about the theory. We talked about how it's represented in the game. Rather than trying to put a set of references here on the video. I will also turn in a Word document with my references. And I really appreciate the opportunity to do this. It's a lot of fun. I know that I was a little bit stuttering and so forth, but I think that as I do this more often, I'll get better at it. So, good times, and thanks a lot.